So clearly, we're already opened up to questions, and I want to keep this going. I think it's great. We've covered some of the general, what is direct action. Now maybe you guys have questions about direct action and what we do in Keene, because to be honest, Keene's the home for getting out in the streets and doing stuff. So I'm going to just pass this back, and then I hope you guys can help me with the mic passing, because we got to pass this around. Oh, actually, this gentleman first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. A couple things. Is this working?
Yes, you won't hear yourself.
You just have to speak up so we can hear you.
No problem. So just addressing that last thing, what I like about this particular form of activism, hearing about Free Talk Live and other sources, is that it is inherently peaceful. And I would put in the same category the activism of trying to get on the school board stuff. What you're doing is you're basically calling the bluff, or exposing kind of the evil part of the whole enterprise. So when you guys go and you fill the parking meters, say, well, you guys need, this is to pay for the streets, or it's a business, right? We're paying for the upkeep of the parking spaces. So you call the bluff. Hey, we're just filling the meters. We're helping you guys get revenue. But obviously, that's not the way it's set up, because it's set up it's like set people up for failure. It depends on them to violate. They're a little bit late, and instead of like, oh, well, you owe us that time you didn't pay for, it's like, oh, you got a penalty. You'll know next time not to. You gotta. It's like, I don't know. They demand some sort of. I think it's an instrument of obedience. It's like you gotta be thinking about us all the time and making sure you don't step 1 foot outside the line, because we will give you a big penalty. So that's what's so good about this, is it exposes that. Now the school board things, it's the same thing. I know that you guys aren't like big believers of the whole process of the state. On the other hand, you show up, you say, okay, let's just see. You guys represent the people, and you say that the process is so important. Let us show up, use it. What happens? Well, you're wasting our time. We're still not going to let you, even though you might be outvoting us or whatever, that doesn't count. Then suddenly you expose that it's a racket, in many cases it is, and maybe all cases. One question I did have, if somebody chose to, let's say, got some of your cards and went to the meters on their own and just check the meters and say, oh, this one's almost out of time, putting the money, put the card, hey, you just were saved by the Robin Hooders. Is that considered Robin Hooding, or is an essential part that you have to be walking in front of the enforcers? Because that's a point of vulnerability. Oh, why are you doing that? Are you trying to intimidate them? And then they go, oh yeah, it is intimidation. In fact, they came so close, I felt threatened for my safety. That's, if you remove that whole action, that whole aspect of Robin Hooding, would it still be Robin Hooding or not? That's my question. Oh, other people.
Oh yeah, let's get that. So, what is Robin Hooding, Graham? What do you think?
Well, as a rule, I actually generally don't walk very close to the parking enforcers. If I see them, I generally will, and I know that Robin Hooding is definitely easier when you walk in front of them because they're going to get a lot less tickets. But I don't feel like being accused of harassing anyone, so I'll generally just walk up and down the streets, fill any meters that I see are expired or almost expired, put a card on there. And yeah, if I see one of the parking enforcers, we usually walk with them for a few minutes, have a friendly conversation, and then we'll be on our way.
I probably would generally agree that it is Robin Hooding. Like my purpose in being close and in front of the enforcer is, to me, it's just the most effective way to do it. There are various ways that it's done. Like one gentleman, he lets them write a ticket, and then he hits, he checks 50 meters around them, and now they can't write a ticket while they're busy doing that. He's hitting all the meters, and then they have nowhere to go. They're going to not have another ticket for 10 minutes. So I would say, generally speaking, it's Robin Hooding. And my goal is, my time is limited, and I want to if I am Robin Hooding, I want to be the most effective I can for the least amount of cost. So that's why I go out there. I try to stay 20 feet in front of the enforcers, and I've told them multiple times, and I've offered, like, I don't have a problem. I'll stay 50 feet in front of you, but I have to know where you're going. Like, if it's truly about these people feel harassed, why don't they have an established route? Just generally speaking, kind of a guideline, like we're going to go in a circle. Okay, that's fine. I'll stay in front of you, and my goal when I'm out there is to reduce the number of tickets written, not necessarily to be next to the parking enforcer. The reason I have to do that is because they will go to, like, they'll walk up to an area. They have 3 ways they can go. I don't know which way they're going to commit to. So I have to, I'm walking in front of them. I stop and I wait for them. Once they commit to a way, I'll run in front of them and I'll start feeding the meters again. So to me, it's just a tactic. Some people, it is, you can feel, I guess, weird to be next to someone, but like I said, these people now have a working relationship with us. One of the things I did right off the bat was I introduced myself to all the parking enforcers. I'm James Cleveland. I'm going to be out here filling the parking meters. So I told them what I was doing, And you got anything to add to that?
One thing that has been critical for the city is maintaining a certain narrative about Robin Hooding, and that is that the Robin Hooders are harassing, intimidating. So obviously with the use of video, that nullifies that idea. But maintaining that narrative has been maintained by some actions of individuals, like we mentioned, the critics. Dr. Dave, the one who came up to us, had some tough questions and put the camera very close to us. He was, I believe, trying to embody the stereotype that was fed to him about what Robin Hooders were doing. So he was behaving in a way that he thought that we would, and he thought we'd respond to. And fortunately, we didn't respond to his escalation, I guess you could say. But that being said, I would love it if every day there was a new Dr. Dave out with some tough questions on camera. But unfortunately, many of the people who oppose the activity are just people that are going to shout "fuck you" over their shoulder as they're walking by or something. So I like I think that the critical nature of, like, people being critical of Robin Hooding is very healthy. I love hearing their criticisms. And but yeah, as James said, like, it's most effective if you're within the proximity of the enforcer. If you're not, if you're just out in an area where they're not, I think it's a little bit dishonest if you're only putting a short amount of time on a meter and claiming to have saved someone. So I'm not putting a card out if the parking enforcer isn't nearby, unless I'm giving them at least an hour and a half.
All right, let's continue with the questions, but I do want to come back to this topic of being peaceful while you're engaging in direct action. But who is next between?
I think this gentleman with the darker shirt.
So my question is, why not let the free market deal with the situation? People don't have to park in the parking spots. They know they have to fill the meters with nickels. They know there's a set time. So it's their responsibility if they don't fill the meters and they get the ticket. So if that really aggravates the public, why not just let the free market deal with it and they'll quit parking there?
When you say that, what do you mean, like, deal with it?
Well, if it was really a problem and the people of Keene were really aggravated about this parking situation, they wouldn't use the parking spaces.
I'll just throw a quick answer for that one. I think that people are accustomed to government doing certain things, right? So when I moved to Keene, it was kind of a shock to the system that I had to hire private trash disposal. I've never had to do that before. I mean, normally where I grew up, the government handled trash disposal. And when you can talk to people about this, and there's a bewilderment. The idea that, what? You mean you can have garbage disposal without the government? And the answer is yes. In fact, there are several private companies who provide trash disposal. And if you don't hire someone to take out your trash, it's going to pile up on your property because no one's going to come take it out. And so when you grow up with the state, this idea in your life, you become accustomed to the things that they take care of. And people have become accustomed to the state taking care of parking. That's what they expect. They argue about it. It's an issue. You know, it's something that's talked about on the radio. There's a parking enforcement bureau chief or whatever who makes decisions and has board meetings about, well, where should the new parking structures be and should we add spaces and this and that, and you know, it seems like an important thing, and so, well, this is the way parking must be done. In downtown Keene, we have to have a centralized bureaucracy in charge of this sort of thing. There's certainly nothing stopping some entrepreneur from coming in and building a parking garage, except for the fact that, you know, maybe they'd be competing with an organization that is coercively funded, so it might be difficult to compete. Does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, real briefly, I would say that number one, the people of Keene are forced to pay for this system. There's a special property tax that goes to the parking department, and so you're already forced to pay for it. And they have such a monopoly. They've been, I think it's like they've had meters since like the 1950s. So I mean, it is like Ian was saying, it's a monopoly, and there is no choice. I mean, the reality is, if you live in Keene, I mean, there are a lot of businesses downtown, and if you want to enjoy them, you can't, unless you're going to park like half a mile away, and you know, the cost is low enough where people make that decision, like they do that cost benefit, like, yeah, I'm willing to pay a quarter, and I'll park a little bit closer to the restaurant. And if the issue is like they're smart enough to realize, like, okay, we have to keep the ticket low enough where people really won't be upset. Like, you know, they're smart enough. If the ticket was $250, you better believe that people would be very angry, and there probably would be a lot more pushback from the citizenry. And so the city is smart enough to realize that, you know, let's keep the tickets low, and someone will go downtown, and it will be annoying to them. Like, okay, they got a ticket, and it is annoying, right? Like, oh, well, I put an hour in. I thought that would be fine, but oh, I got my hair cut and there was a huge line and I went and ate or whatever, and it took longer than I expected. So, you know, I guess to answer the question, the city won't allow the free market to work. One of the things I proposed to City Council was, you know, okay, the parking department has lost money for the last 3 years, parking fund, and your capital improvement program, they project out 6 years. All 6 years, the parking fund is going to run a deficit. So how about over 3 years, you know, you guys come up with some kind of plan, or, you know, it could be whatever, to phase out the parking department. And, oh, that's a good idea. You know, that's their response. So the city won't allow the free market to work. It'd be like, well, why doesn't the free market, you know, fix all the potholes? Because it can't. You know, you're still forced to pay for the roads, the gas tax, whether you want to or not. You know, I can't really run a business where, you know, I'm ABC patching, and I go into a neighborhood, and I guess I suppose I could do it, but people would say, well, you know, I pay the city to do that. You know, why would I pay you to patch the roads? You know what I mean? Or it's like, why hadn't the free market taken over education? Because there's such an entrenched monopoly. There's so much power behind this that it's not allowed. You know, they can't even address it. I hope that answered your question.
I just have something real quick. About a free market solution, I see Robin Hood as the free market solution. I mean, people donate. They're funding this. They want to see this as their solution, I would think.
One follow-up, have you guys made an offer to the city?
Hang on.
Sorry. Have you guys made an offer to the city to buy some parking spaces and maybe some sort of deal to leave them alone and you can have your own?
That's cool.
Well, there have been some individual projects where we'll pick off a portion of the city and say free parking for the day here and just keep the meters filled. One of our friends started doing that, and I'm thinking that we're going to be doing more of that this year. But I guess when you said about a free market solution, that brings up a good point is, does Robin Hooding have an element of socialism in it? Perhaps it does, because we're providing something for nothing to the people of Keene. But as I said, I think it's an example where you're providing very little and the reward, it's not something we get. It isn't like we get the lost revenue or anyone gets it. It's just something that's not seen by the city and not felt by the people.
Yeah, and I would add too, like one of my big problems with the parking ticket is, to me, it's clearly about the revenue, because suppose there's a vehicle and there's 6 empty spots around it. If they issue a ticket, how is that managing parking? That has nothing, okay, it didn't fix the problem. And even if all the spots were full and they issue a ticket, the problem still exists, the vehicle's still there. So, I kind of like the idea of buying spaces. However, I would add that, so the city, they redid one of their parking lots on, I think it's Mechanic Street, I believe. It's behind the fire station. The cost per spot was $5,000 a spot. And I don't know if that's like the market rate or whatever, but to me, I can't afford, I'd love to add 200 spots downtown, but who knows what that cost would be. And, that was one of my proposals to the city was, you guys can eliminate the parking department and build more spaces. That to me, it's like a state-run industry. If you flip the switch immediately, like in the Soviet bloc, you had all these state-run industries. They had to kind of have a plan to, we've been running these things so long, you can't just make the immediate switch, which is why I advocated for a phasing period, as opposed to just, like, if they flip the switch immediately, of course, they've been mismanaging parking for 50, 60 years. It's not going to work. They've impeded the free market from fixing the problem. Like, there's no business that says, oh, you know what, I'm not going to build enough parking spots for my business. Like, that doesn't happen in the free market. Could you imagine, like, you tried to go shopping and you can't find a spot? You're gonna be like, okay, I'm going to your competitor. So I would say that it's a total problem. It's a total problem of central planning. The downtown has been centrally planned for so long that they've caused the issue. And they do a lot of things where they're inefficient in how they use the existing space downtown. Like, if you look at pictures of Old Keene, the pavement, if you will, the roads extend all the way to the shops. Now they have like some of the largest sidewalks I've ever seen, like 10 feet. And they have all this green space downtown. So it's not, they don't want a solution. This is a money-making opportunity for them, even though they somehow managed to lose money. And, that's just the reality. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I have one for both.
First, I would like to suggest that getting something for nothing is private charity, it's not socialism. But second, have you guys considered pointing out the green aspects of what you're doing, especially to your critics, like, the paint's being saved?
That's probably something for Garret.
We're saving the planet.
I'm sure that brings to mind one of the things I encourage the parking enforcers not to do is to push the stop traffic button so they can use the crosswalk. And I encourage them that it would be more environmentally friendly if people weren't wasting gas if they just waited for traffic to clear and find an opportunity. It would be nice if they went in a greener direction. I think the city of Keene prides itself on being this very progressive, small city in this place surrounded by woods in Cheshire County. They've moved recently to actually this electronic system on top of the metered system, kind of separate from the metered system, where you can pay for parking in a particular zone by entering ahead of time your credit card and making an account on their website. And when you go to one of those spots, you say, like, I'm in this zone, and they won't write you a ticket. Now, they're trying to advertise that as a way that, if you don't like those Robin Hooders, you can pay electronically, and then they'll also probably fill your meter, and the city will get double money. Which is potentially true. I'm sure we filled meters that were already filled electronically and we didn't know. However, they're also using that information to know when people start parking. They now have an electronic signal telling them they've been parked here 2 hours. That's a violation even if they paid. So by using the system, the people who use it are also telling the city, they're sending them a signal, my car's expired, come write me a ticket.
All right, so back from that.